Can you guys hear me better now? I think they can hear me now. Yeah, I think you guys can hear me now. Sorry about that. That was a technical difficulty. Some of the things we face here. Can you guys hear me better? Yeah, I think they can now. Right. 15 minutes wasted. That's bad. Okay, so I'm just gonna continue anyway. So what was I saying? Uh, okay, so when I was applying, I had to think outside the box, and that was what necessitated me to uh, to think out, like, okay, to reach out to my professors and ask them if they would allow me to draft the recommendation letters and send it to them, and they can edit it, right? And after editing it, in fact, I even offered to turn it to PDF, to convert it to PDF myself. Like, you don't have to do anything. All you need to do is just look through it. If there's anything you want to change, you can change it. You have the free will to do that. And you can even send it back to me. I'll convert it to PDF. If that's what's going to waste our time, just send it back to me. I'll convert it to PDF. And I'll send it back to you. All you need to do is just to upload it. So I was able to make that pact with those three recommenders, and they were graceful enough to allow me to do that. Now, this trick, a lot of people, it has worked for a lot of people that I've spoke to about, but a few people told me that if they tell their, I don't know if they tried it or not, but they said, well, if I told my professor that, please, can you allow me to draft this recommendation letter, the professor is going to reject it because they feel like you're trying to downsize the ability to come up with a strong recommendation letter for you, you know. But in my own opinion, that shouldn't matter. I think it's a matter of approach. So you don't just tell them, sir, I want to write a recommendation letter for you. No, that doesn't make sense. So you have to convince them that, just let them know, sir or ma, this, I know you are busy. You're a very very busy person, and I don't want to disturb you so much. And I have a very strict deadline. So if you allow me to draft your recommendation letter, I can send it to you. You can edit it. So I'll just come up with the drafts. You can edit it, then we'll upload it. So I'm sure you're able to tell them that, they will be convinced, and allow you to do that. Now, so the advantage of that is for the three recommendation letters. So after doing that, the three recommendation letters I came up with, they were different templates, and that's the first thing I want you guys to notice, to take note of. There have to be three different templates. I mean, I'm okay. I think I'm getting ahead of myself. To step back. Recommendation letters differ across different schools, right? Each school is going to ask you for different numbers of recommendation letters. So some schools might ask you for 5 recommendation letters. Some schools might ask you for 4. A lot of schools usually ask for 3, and my school asked for 3 recommendation letters. So depending on the school, you should be preparing to to come up with at least 3 different recommendation letters, or 4 or 5. Now, so the problem with this now is that who should write the recommendation letters, right? So who should write? Who should, if I have to provide 3 recommenders, what should they be? So what I usually recommend to people is that the number one person that should come to your mind if you want to write a recommendation letter should be your supervisor, your undergrad supervisor. So the person that supervises your undergrad research project, that's the first person you need to talk to about recommendation letter, because the person will be able to vie for your research capabilities. That's the number one. Now, number two and three are professors from your department. Now, professors can mean different thing in different countries. In the US, professors is just what you guys in Nigeria would call lecturers. So it doesn't mean like professor or like professor. So people ask me, so does the person have to be a professor? No, you don't have to be a professor. You just have to be lecturers in your department that have taught you before a course or two before and can speak to your performance in that class. Or a professor I keep saying professor, so let me come to the level. A lecturer that maybe didn't even teach you a course, but they like supervise your seminar or something. They have relation with you and they can talk about you. But especially if they are in your department, and that's very very important. So should the person be a professor? No, they don't have to be a professor. In fact, I only had one professor in my three recommenders. So the first person was my supervisor, of course. Second person was a lecturer in my department at the time. And the third person was also a lecturer in my department that happened to be a professor. So, but all three of them were doctors. Now, another question will come. Should they all be doctors? Like, should they all have PhDs before they can recommend you? The answer is no. It's advisable to approach people that have their doctorate, right? Because like the education system in different countries differ. In the US, you can be allowed to lecture in a department if you don't have the PhD. That's like the lowest qualification. Or so if you have a master, it'll probably be a TA or something. But if you have a PhD, then that is when you can now like start become a lecturer. But in Nigeria, for example, even if you don't have a PhD, you can still start working as a lecturer, although at a lower level, and you promote and stuff. So because of those dynamics, so you have to like take note of that. Um, but should they have a PhD in Nigeria? I would say no, they don't have to have a PhD. But you should prioritize people that have PhD more than people that do not have PhD in your department for recommendation letter. So if your supervisor does not have a PhD, you don't have a choice. You have to include them because they are your supervisor, whether you like it or not. So that's like the ranking of people you can meet for recommendation letters. Now, having said that, the next is I think I answered all the question. Now the next is how do I write this recommendation letter? So we've established now that you have to be involved in the recommendation letter thing. Yes, you have to be involved. So you have sorry, you have to be involved in recommendation letter writing because that's like the best way to ensure that those recommendation letters are strong, right? And second thing is you have to make sure that you're going to the right person for the recommendation letter. Now, another thing, what I forgot to mention there is that if you're writing three recommendation letters, if the school you're applying to asks you for three recommendation letters, all three recommendation letters I usually recommend should be professor from department. I mean lecturer from department, your supervisor, and the two other lecturers. However, if you are to write four recommendation letters, four, all four can come from your department as well. But if you do have like experience, relevant experience outside of the university, maybe you've worked with, maybe after you graduated, you were working in a company that's related to what you're doing, right? That's related to your course. It's not like you are working in the bank, you know, when you study microbiology. Those are two different things. That's not what I'm talking about now. If you graduated and maybe you were working at a firm that's doing exactly what or that your course of interest, you can approach that supervisor at that company or the CEO or whoever to recommend you. But pay attention to the numbers. You have to write 4 recommendation letters. 3 of them have to come from your department, while maybe one of them can come from your department or can come from your industry supervisor. You have a choice. That's a choice. If you have to write 5 recommendation letters, five. Okay, yeah, I think they're hearing me now. So if you have to write 5 recommendation letters, 3 of them can come. No, 4 of them will come from your department, from lecturers in your department, and maybe one can come from the industry, or 5 of them. All 5 of them will come from lecturers in your department. So, having established this, now how do you write recommendation letter? So let's get into it. So this is my first recommendation letter, and from uh, it's from a professor in my department, not my supervisor. I have the 3 recommendation letters. I'm going to show you all 3. So this first one I'm showing you now is from a lecturer in my department that taught me, I think, 2 courses. Now pay attention to what I wrote. And so this, okay, so funny thing is all these templates, the templates I used for the 3 recommendation letters were different, right? And I got them from the internet. So everything you're looking for is on the internet if you know where to find. So uh, the first thing is the letterhead. Make sure, try as much as possible to use a letterhead for your recommendation letter. Have your recommender use their letterhead. This is the letterhead my recommenders use. So that's why it's like it has my university logo. But I mean, I don't know what the letterhead of your professor will look like, but this is what mine looks like. So a letterhead gives some sort of reliability and credibility to your recommendation letter. Now, of course, the name of the person and their title and their email and the date. So this one says, Dear Admission Committee. Now, the first paragraph was talking about the course, how they knew me, right? How they knew me, like the relationship between the person and me. That's the first thing you need to establish in the recommendation letter. What's the relationship? So in this one, it says during the first semester, it says, okay, dear admission committee, I'm excited to learn that Munir will be pursuing a PhD program in molecular and cell biology. During the first semester academic of the 2017-18 academic session, I had the pleasure of having Munir in my microbial genetics and molecular biology class. I even put the title MCB 301 class, where he demonstrated exceptional keenness in the course through his thought-provoking questions and well-researched assignments. So we have established that he knew me from the fact that I attended his classes, and he knew me specifically because my assignments were very great and I asked questions in class. Now that's what I mentioned about specificity earlier. So this is not just he's brilliant, he's intelligent. You have to develop the story. You have to make up a story. Like, how is he brilliant? So don't just so there's a saying in journalism. I used to do journalism way back. The saying is show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. So you don't tell them that you're brilliant. You show them that you're brilliant based on events that have happened. Now, the next part, no, not the paragraph. The next sentence says, although my class sizes are quite large, I always make a point of paying close attention to students who actively participate in and are keen about my courses. So, in comparison with the majority of his peers, I can say with confidence that Munir is a remarkable student who will bring great value to any university that he chooses to attend. Now, so the next paragraph is very, very interesting and it gets more specific from here. So, Munir exhibits critical thinking and problem solving traits. For example, now, so that's the key word. For example, so show, do not tell. Show, do not tell. So now let's show them that I have critical thinking and problem solving traits. For example, in his assignment on housekeeping genes, those are biology stuff, Munir gave a refreshing insight into how GADPH and other popular housekeeping genes are experimental controls have been found in very considerably quantity across tissues and stuff. So these are biology things. But what I want you to pick out from here, I don't want to bore you with biology, is that you have to get specific. Now you said that this student takes a class from you as a recommender, right? And you are telling this committee of admission that this student of mine is very, very brilliant and has a very critical thinking and problem solving traits. You have to show them how. And so that's what brought about. So those of you that are on YouTube can see what I'm reading out. If you're on space, sorry, I'm just gonna be reading it out to you. So if it makes sense to you, but if it doesn't, just click on the link you see here, and you can see what I'm sharing on YouTube. So, so this second paragraph is pretty much showing them how, like, my performance in class, right, with specific details about my assignments, and it sort of makes sense because if, for example, you are on the admission committee and someone submits a recommendation letter that's saying things that happened like about 2 years ago, assignment that a student submitted like 2 years ago, and you still remember to put it in your recommendation letter. So it means that this student must be really great for you to remember the assignment and specifically what the student wrote. So it's a very, very brilliant strategy to have your recommendation letter like this. So then moving on, this sentence says Munir scored one of the best grades in the course. He also did very well in the two subsequent courses I taught him in his final year, namely Industrial Microbiology and MCB 411, Petroleum Microbiology. So the last paragraph, there's just 3 paragraphs, and so that's another thing to note. Your recommendation letter should not be too long, but but okay, so I can't specifically tell you not to have it too long, but if your recommendation letter is 2 pages and it makes sense, you are better than someone that writes a 1 page recommendation letter. Because, like, just think of it like this. So if someone has enough to say about you to be able to write 2 pages of recommendation letter for you, it means that you are good, like you're really good, and you are definitely going to get that admission. So the last paragraph says, now, so this last paragraph is very, very interesting. So at the time, I was writing a review article. So when I started looking for scholarship like you guys, I learned that having a publication is going to boost your chances of admission, right? So I took a step. My research project was not that great like that. So I felt like I wouldn't want to publish my research project. That's going to take a while. So I just said, okay, I should write a review article. So I started writing the review article in collaboration with one professor in Ghana. And so when I wanted to apply to UT Dallas, I had already finished the article. So we're just editing it, right? So I now sent the article, I sent the manuscript to each of my recommenders to look at it. And and put it in their recommendation letter. So even though I was the one that read the recommendation letter, I sent them to send it to them to look at it. So I now mentioned it in the recommendation letter. So I felt like a combination of all of this is actually what got me the admission, despite the fact that I didn't really have that much qualification compared to a lot of people that applied to the program. Like I think 118 people applied to the program as I did, and only 13 people got in. So that tells you how competitive. That means like about over 100 people got rejection letter when I got admission. So it means that you are doing something must have been really great with your essays and your recommendation letters. So I feel like this recommendation letter must have contributed to my success in the application. So this last paragraph was about my review article. It says I recently read through I recently read through the manuscript of Munir's review on Listeria in Africa, in which he identified research gaps in the molecular epidemiology of Listeria species in Africa that need further studies. It was a remarkably well prepared research piece. So far, he is the only one I have seen among his peers who have taken further steps in academic writing. I wrote this piece myself. I'm not serious. I know that. So at the time, I knew that I probably was the only one writing an article. So which is like kind of fits into what I spoke to you earlier about being specific. You have to be very specific. Like so, I knew. I mean, I wrote a review article, but then I knew that I was the only one that was probably taking that step at the time, among my colleagues. So I mentioned it in my recommendation letter. So, so I'm impressed by his rapid academic growth, more importantly in the field of molecular biology. And so this last sentence, right, is also very important. So the last sentence should show if you get into the program, are you going to survive? Because one thing about PhD, I was applying to a PhD program. One thing about PhD is that it's a very tough program to be in. So the chances of dropping out is high. A lot of people drop out. Like a lot of people, sometimes it's not even like they drop out. Sometimes they come down with mental issues and they can't continue any further and stuff. So it's not everybody that starts the program that will finish. So you have to show them that you have the rigor and the determination to continue even when things get tough. So I made a note to mention this in all the recommendation letter I wrote about. So I wrote like this: while I understand that beyond intelligence it takes a lot of determination and rigor to complete a PhD, I'm confident that Munir has the determination and emotional stability required to survive in the program. I therefore highly recommend Munir for your PhD program in molecular biology. So this one is from the professor that was teaching me. Now let me show you the one from my supervisor. So if you're on YouTube, you see that I just switched my screen. I'm showing you my second recommendation letter from my supervisor, my project supervisor. So the recommendation letter reads like this, I quote: to the admission, of course, the normal procedure, it has to have a letterhead. That's what I want to remember. It has to have a letterhead. You have to mention the name of the professor, their position, and their email. Then I also wrote the date as well. So it reads thus: to the admission committee of University of Texas at Dallas. Now, note the difference. If you're the one writing all these two recommendation letters, you don't want to, and so this is one thing you don't want to do. You don't want to use one style across because it doesn't make sense. So the expectation is that three people are writing recommendation letter from you for you, three different people. So if all of them now use one style, then it means that something is wrong somewhere. So you don't want to give yourself out. So the first recommendation letter reads as Dear Admission Committee. That's the salutation. The second one is to the Admission Committee of the University of Texas at Dallas. So the first paragraph, of course, I'm pleased to strongly recommend Munir for the PhD Molecular Cell Biology program in your university. Now, the first paragraph should tell you how what's the relationship between you and your professor. I've known Munir for the past 3 years, teaching him MCB 305 titled Introduction to Virology in his third year, and ultimately supervising his undergraduate research project and seminar presentation in his final year. So this is my professor, this is my supervisor. She supervised my project and seminar, and she also taught me one course, virology. So the next sentence, during this time, I've had interactions with Munir on an academic and personal level, and what struck me was his diligence and commitment to work, and his desire for excellence in projects he undertook. Now let's get to the specifics. So this is the next paragraph. The next paragraph reads, Munir stayed back on campus during the holidays to gather and review literature for his research project, long before most other students under my supervision came up with the topic. So that is really, really specific. And so those of you that are looking at this is what I want you guys to pay attention to. Okay. So this is what I want you guys to pay attention to. It has to be specific. It has to be really, really specific. Like, what are the events that happened that can show that you have what it takes to get into that PhD program you want to apply to, or that master's program you want to apply to. So this first paragraph, this first line about me staying back during the holiday when other people to do my project, when other people had already gone home, for holiday and stuff. So it shows that, shows determination, of course. And I mentioned it in my recommendation letter. So you should try to think back to what happened during those times and bring them back on your recommendation letter. They're going to help you. So now, is also teachable and learns relatively fast. At our first meeting, I described the general outline of a creative project topic he would work on, which was effect of charcoal on microorganisms isolated from bee paste. That's my research project. That was the title of my research project. So he asked good questions and appeared intelligent. I was impressed at his motivation and initiative when he manifested with the introduction section of this project only 2 weeks after. So yeah, I actually wrote this because I was doing my project during the holidays, right? And so when I went to see my supervisor first, so in 2 weeks I had already submitted introduction. So you guys should. So those are things I want you guys to have in your recommendation letters. Pay attention to the details, those specific details. Make sure they are there. So don't just put, yeah, he's intelligent, yes, he's determined, yes. No, don't just do that. Make sure if you say he's intelligent, show them that you're actually intelligent, right? And so this last one. So in spite of his debacle in acquiring relevant text from the library, he demonstrated an excellent research skill by coming up with an impressive literature review, leveraging the internet. So I had a problem at the time when I was writing my recommendation letter. When I was writing my project, yeah. So I wasn't able to find a lot of references or text to use for my project at the time. So from the library. That's usually what people do. You go to the library, you get things that are related to your project, research project, and you use it. But I was not able to do that because my project was relatively kind of new in some way. So I used the internet, and I was able to use the internet well. So I mentioned that too. So all this long story is to tell you that your recommendation letter has to be really unique. It has to be specific. It has to be you. Like they don't read your recommendation letter and think that, well, anyone could have written this. No, it has to be that you actually wrote it because this thing happened. So gener- stay away, try to avoid as much as possible, try to avoid generic statements in your recommendation letters. So I think that's one of the I'm going to give you an example of this. When I got admission to UT Dallas a few years back, a girl reached out to me, and she was a first class student, right? She had a very, very strong grade and stuff. So it turned out she also applied to the same program that I applied to, that I got in, but she got rejection letter. So she was now wondering, like, how did I get in? Like, what was the secret? Because she applied, she was first class, and I wasn't even first class. Like those that saw my CV, you see that I don't have a first class. I have a second class upper. So she had a first class, but she didn't get the same program that we both applied to at the same time. So why did they choose me over her? So then I asked her to send her stuff to me, like all the documents, including recommendation letter, etc. And so when I read the recommendation letter, it was I just knew right away that she couldn't get in because recommendation letters were trash. Like they were written by the recommenders, but it turned out like those recommenders maybe were busy, or they just didn't have time. They just drafted something like one paragraph that's riddled with typos, errors and stuff, and just one paragraph. Like, so I don't see if you're using this to apply to a school, I don't see why they should take you into that school. So people take recommendation letters for granted too much. And on the list of things that are very, very important in application for graduate school, recommendation letter, I can say, would come second after research experience. So the first thing they will look at is research experience because you're coming to do research. They want to know if you have done research before or not. And the other thing is recommendation letter because before they start looking through your SOP, they want to know, your SOP is you talking about yourself, right? Before they start doing that, they want to know what people that you have worked with before, have to say about you. And because they're academics, because those people are professors like them, so they believe them more than they believe you. So your recommendation letter has more weight than your SOP, in my opinion, and actually a proven fact. So your SOP is your SOP. Of course, you have to sell yourself very well, but at the same time, how do your professors sell you is also very important. So while you're trying to perfect your SOP and submit it and your CV, don't don't take your recommendation letter with a levity hand because like it's very, 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 very important, and I think it's just like it constitutes a very big amount of what makes a lot of people get rejected. You know, so recommendation letter specific as possible and as strong as possible. So you can go through this. Those that are on YouTube will be seeing what I'm sharing right now. Uh, So I also mentioned the last paragraph. I mentioned the paper I said I wrote, the review article I said I wrote earlier. I mentioned that. So you can come back to read through the rest later. Now let me show you the third one, the third recommendation letter from my I thought I opened it already. Great. So this is it. So this is the third recommendation letter. So if you notice, it's not in letterhead. So that's because I can't find the one with the letterhead here. So the third one starts with another style of salutation. The first one was um, Dear Admission Committee. The second one was to the Admission Committee at the University of Texas at Dallas. To this one is to the Graduate Faculty of the University of Texas. I don't even know how I came up with this. I'm just seeing it. So it starts with, well, it's my pleasure to recommend Munir for admission into the Doctor of Philosophy in Microbiology and Cell Biology program at the University of Texas at Dallas. So this person introduced themselves and they said, I came to know Munir while teaching him MCB 201, titled General Microbiology, which encompassed basic skills that are employed in the field of microbiology. Munir distinguished himself by submitting a well-researched and interesting assignment on nutrient cycle. He's one of the bright students I have taught in respect to his writing and research skills. Overall, Munir is intelligent and has good problem-solving skills. His nutrient cycle assignment demonstrated blah blah. That's the assignment. So if you want to talk about a lecturer that teach you, if you are getting a recommendation letter from a lecturer that teach you a course, that taught you a course before. So one of the things, if you want to get specific, one of the things you can talk about is the assignment, because that's usually what happens in courses anyway. And if and presentation, I know some of the courses you guys present and stuff. So you can talk about the assignment, you can talk about the courses, the presentation. So how well researched were the assignments you submitted for the class, the course, the presentation you made in the class. So how great was it? And you can also talk about the grade you got from the class. So if the grade was A, you can simply mention that, well, I got an A, he got an A in the course. But if it's not A, you don't want to mention B or C or whatever it is. So you can just say that his grades were among the highest in class. That's a very nice way to deflect that part. So now the second one. So this is where you talk about your presentation in class. Munir has excellent communication skills. His written work is both clear and concise, as well as interesting to read. He demonstrated his oral articulateness in the discussion sessions that were an integral part of the course and was proficient in applying the course material and analyzing the topic. So this whole paragraph just to show that I presented in the class. So you guys have to be very, very smart when you're writing recommendation letters. So you sometimes will be asking yourself, so like, what would I write? The course is just like, this person, we only taught me one class in school. So like, what will I write that will fill a page about me, about my performance in the class? So these are ways to do that. So you can talk about the assignments. An entire paragraph can do that for you. You can also talk about your presentation in the class. Even if you didn't present, you can still talk about it. Pointing out the communication skills, etc. And eventually, here, so I said at a personal level. So we talked about the assignment and presentation, right? Communication skills and writing skills. At a personal level, Munir is a very well disciplined industrial student with a pleasant personality. He was inquisitive and actively participated in practicals during laboratory sessions. So I mentioned this because uh, the program I was going into was research, of course. So they want to see if you can do research. So mentioning that you can, like, you participated in laboratory activities and etc., is going to make them want to take you into the program. So throughout the courses, Munir demonstrated great perseverance and initiative. Not only was he interested in motivate in and motivated to learn the materials, but he also put great work into assimilating them. So these are just ways to say that I did well in the class. So it's just about being smart and you knowing your ways around words, the usage of words. So pretty much everything this whole like entire like page of recognition letter was about was that I took a course with the professor and I did great in the class. Simple. But because you just have to write an entire page, so you have to find ways to do that in such a way that is not like redundant or is not generic. So, uh, so the last one, the last paragraph was also about my paper. The paper I wrote, Munir is okay. Munir is unquestionably an exceptional candidate for the graduate study. His recent review work suggests that he would greatly benefit from the opportunities for intellectual development provided by a sustained period of graduate study. So, this is where I would advise you guys. If you have the chance and there's still time to do that, try to come up with a paper. It could be a review article, it could be your project, research project that you did in undergrad. Try to come up with something like that that you can publish. So by mentioning those things in your recommendation letters and your SOP and on your CV, referencing that on your CV, I think it's going to boost your chances of getting into grad school. I think I owe this to the leap I took at the time to write a review article. So it doesn't have to get published at the time because it wasn't published at the time. It only like I was already in graduate school. I was already in Dallas before this article was published. But at the time, I had already completed the manuscript, and the manuscript is very very easy to write. In just like in a few weeks, you can come up with a review article, and you can start editing it and stuff. But the most important thing is that you already have a review article, and so when you mention it, you just tell them that it's in process for publication, or it's in review for publication, or it's in press. But then they know that you have an evidence of a writing skill. So uh, so I'm going to check if you guys have any questions. Some of you guys might have asked some questions or not. Okay, so see if I can answer this question before I round off for today. But uh, I think we started out pretty rough, considering that my audio was not great in the beginning. Uh, okay, yeah, I don't think there's any question. So I'm just gonna end it here, and we'll continue the conversation later. Maybe I'm gonna set up a space to specifically answer your questions on recommendation letters. But today I'm out. Honestly, I'm out. I have some things to do as well. But I'm so sorry that it went out pretty rough in the beginning. I'm gonna try uh, to fix my presentation setup and stuff by next time. So so you guys can check out my YouTube page, and I have a lot of videos about tricks that you can apply. I think tricks that can help you to that can boost your chances of getting an admission with full funding in the US, in schools in the US. So if you're new here and you don't know how to begin, how to start the process of application, you can check out one of the webinars I did about an hour long or so that's talking about everything you need to know about applying to the US, the documents you need, and how you can get them, etc. When you can apply, and when the deadlines are, etc. And so, how to write SOP, how to write CV using my own samples, just like I've shown you today. I also have videos for those ones too on YouTube. You can check them out. And I also post short videos about showing tricks, pretty much showing tricks. Okay, so someone was asking a question: how many pages is best for a recommendation letter? So I think I mentioned that earlier. One page is fine. A full one page, like complete one page is fine. But if you are able to write more than that, that's also fine. Like if you have two, I don't know how people can do that, but if you are able to come up with very 2 pages of strong recommendation letters or 1.5 pages of strong recommendation letters, that's cool. But one page, full one page is very nice. So don't do one paragraph and just go and submit. It doesn't make sense. One paragraph, 2 paragraphs don't make sense for a recommendation letter. So, uh, okay, I think, yeah, sorry about the rough start. So I have to hang up here today. Let's continue the conversation on Twitter. You guys can like and subscribe and turn on notification. If I have any videos I post. I'm gonna be posting videos, of course, uploading videos, so you guys can get notification for them when they are posted. Thank you guys for joining me to afternoon because it's afternoon here in Dallas. See you guys some other time. Maybe next week. I'm gonna let you know if I have something else to talk about as regards scholarship and stuff. And maybe I'll probably would have fixed my setup by then, so we won't have these audio problems. Thank you guys for joining me. Bye for now.